When it comes to MMA, most people immediately think of one name. Conor McGregor isn't just a fighter, he's a brand that has forever changed the world of mixed martial arts. As we follow his journey, we will see how a young man from Dublin fought for his dreams, won championship belts, and captured the attention of millions of people around the world. It's a story full of hard work, sacrifice and dedication, but also a reminder that even the greatest successes don't last forever. What can we learn from the man behind the legend of Conor McGregor? Conor Anthony McGregor was born on July 14th, 1988 in Dublin. Before he fell in love with combat sports, his greatest passion was soccer. He played for the local club Lourdes Celtic, but over time soccer ceased to fascinate him. Everything changed when, at the age of 12, he stepped into a local boxing club for the first time. It was there that a story began that would change the world of MMA a few years later. Conor's childhood was not an easy one. He was a victim of bullying and often came home from school beaten up. Instead of giving up, he decided to learn how to fight. At the age of 15, he began training in kickboxing and jiu-jitsu, not yet realizing where this path would lead him. In 2006, he moved with his family to Lucan, where he graduated from high school. Adulthood, however, turned out to be much harder than he anticipated. He couldn't find a stable job, but thanks to his father's connections, he landed a job as a plumber. There was just one thing. He hated that job. As he has often recalled, every morning he dreamed of never having to go back there again. Finally, he took a chance. He quit his job as a plumber and devoted himself entirely to training. This meant, however, living on unemployment benefits. His parents didn't support this decision. They believed that this dream of becoming a professional MMA fighter had no chance of success and sooner or later he would have to return to a normal job. There was, however, one person who believed in him unconditionally. It was Dee Devlin. She was the one who supported them both, cooked for them, encouraged him every day, and did everything she could so that Conor could focus solely on training. Without her sacrifice, this story might have never happened. And success didn't come right away. In his 6 first professional fights, McGregor lost twice. He even began to seriously consider ending his career. Fortunately, he wasn't alone. His coach Joe Kavanagh and his closest friends and family convinced him not to give up and to keep doing what he loves to do. It was a decision that changed everything. At the time, few people took those words seriously. Conor, however, wasn't just throwing them around. He won the next 6 fights in a row, securing a title bout for the Cage Warriors Featherweight Championship. McGregor began to dominate. Although he still hadn't fought in the UFC, news of the young Irishman spread like wildfire around the world. More and more people were talking about the fighter who knocks out nearly every opponent in the first round. The real test, however, was yet to come. The Cage Warriors Featherweight Championship bout. Conor passed that test with flying colors. One might think that winning the championship belt solved all his financial problems. Nothing could be further from the truth. During the first 5 years of his professional MMA career, between 2008 and 2013, McGregor earned a total of only £7,500. That was the amount he had to use to cover his living expenses, trainings and daily costs. Despite this, he had no intention of stopping. On December 21st, 2012, he brutally knocked out Ivan Buchinger, simultaneously becoming the Cage Warriors featherweight and lightweight champion. It seemed that from that moment on, everything would be smooth sailing. However, the exact opposite happened. For the first time, Conor truly had doubts. He decided that it was time to go back to a regular job. Sports no longer made financial sense. Cage Warriors offered him a contract worth £1,000 a month, but for him, that amount wasn't enough to live a normal life. Fortunately, John Kavanagh, his head coach, advised him not to accept the offer. Shortly afterward, Conor himself recalled that moment saying, "I thought, screw it, I don't want to do it anymore. What if I devote my whole life to this and then something happens that prevents me from fighting anyway?" So he stopped training, he stopped answering calls from his manager. He was convinced that his manager was calling with yet another fight, so he didn't want to accept the call because he didn't want to fight. There was just one thing. Yes, there was a call, but the call was from the UFC. It was an offer he couldn't refuse. When Conor joined the UFC, we knew from the beginning he was gonna be a real deal. First round knockout versus Marcus Brimage proved that immediately. Not only that, he got his first bonus afterwards, and the famous
"Congratulations! Thank you very much, Dana! 60 G's, baby!"
I think someone is called.
is known to this day. At the pre-fight press conference before his next fight, Conor said, "When I step into the ring on Saturday night and knock out Diego in the first round, I'll prove my worth." And as he said, he did. Most people dismissed it as just another round of trash talk. A few days later, it turned out those weren't just empty words. McGregor knocked out Diego Brandao in the very first round, leaving no doubt as to who was the better fighter. That's what set him apart from most fighters. Many fighters predict their victories. Few are able to follow through and do exactly what they promise. Conor was the exception. He gave the impression that he knew the future, as if even before stepping into the octagon, he knew how the fight would end. Another knockout also meant another financial bonus. His money problem were beginning to fade into the past, and for the first time, McGregor could afford a life he hadn't even dreamed of before. One of his major purchases was a new car for Dee Devlin, the woman who had supported him from the very beginning. Just as importantly, he emerged from the fight against Brandao without a single injury, and that meant only one thing: he can fight instantly, and that was very important because when he thought his second fight versus Max Holloway, he torn his ACL and he had to take a break. Now, he could just fight instantly, and that meant another challenge awaited him: Dustin Poirier. Conor approached this fight in a completely different way. This time he decided to win before he even stepped into the cage. At every press conference and during every media appearance, he constantly tried to get inside Dustin's head, and you have to admit, he did it brilliantly. Even Dustin to this day, he says that it was very hard to deal with and he actually lost the fight before he even stepped into the octagon. These weren't just ordinary provocations, it was a deliberate psychological war. Conor made Dustin stop fighting according to his own plan. Instead of keeping a cool head, he wanted to punish the Irishman at all costs, so he started to engage, and he moved forward, he looked aggressively for a KO, and Conor loves to counter, and this is exactly what he did. The rest was just a formality. McGregor knocked out Dustin in the first round, exactly as he predicted before this fight. After this fight, Conor as usual reminded everyone that he had predicted this outcome. From that moment on, there was no turning back. The UFC world had just met its new superstar. McGregor's follow grew week by week. Tens of thousands of fans quickly turned into hundreds of thousands, and virtually every MMA fan knew the young Irishman's name. He was only 26 years old, and he was one step away from becoming a millionaire. By earning his third bonus in just 4 fights, McGregor instantly became the UFC fastest rising star. The Irish were literally crazy about him. Every event he appeared, it was a sellout. No matter where he thought, his whole country was backing him up to just fly to the other side of the world to follow him, because that's just who they are. Conor himself, however, had only one goal in mind. He wasn't interested in money. He wasn't interested in fame. All that mattered was the UFC Featherweight Championship belt. To win it, he had to defeat at least one more opponent, Denis Siver. At the beginning of 2015, the Russian boasted an impressive record of 22 wins and 9 losses. Even before the fight, McGregor announced that 2015 would be his year. And once again, he kept his word. He dominated Siver from the very first seconds, bombarding him with a flurry of punches. When the fight was over, he didn't even celebrate his victory. He jumped over the cage. He headed straight for Jose Aldo. Who was Jose Aldo? Then featherweight champion didn't need to hear a single word. He knew exactly what that meant. That meant that he is next. Their bout was scheduled for July 2015. Even then it was being billed as one of the biggest fights in UFC history, as if not the biggest. The names McGregor and Aldo electrified the entire world of combat sports. The organization put together a global promotion tour. The press conferences were held in Brazil and Ireland, and the promotion only served to ramp up the excitement. Everything was set. Then suddenly, unexpected happened. Jose Aldo suffered a rib injury. Chad Mendes stepped into the cage in Aldo's place. On paper, That was a terrible news for McGregor. Mendes was an excellent wrestler and stylistically a much tougher opponent than the Brazilian. To make matters worse, Conor had spent the entire training camp preparing for a completely different opponent. For him, it didn't really matter. He said he'll win anyway, and he will knock him out in 2 rounds. A few weeks before the fight, something happened that could have derailed all his plans. During one of his training sessions, Conor heard a loud crack in his knee. He knew right away that something very serious happened. His friend Artem Lobov later recalled, "Conor is training without an ACL. Without it, most people would have even trouble walking. Practically anyone would have pulled out of the fight, but not him." McGregor never gives up, not even after everything he had built, not after years of sacrifice, not after the journey he'd taken to get to this point. He understood he just needs to keep going. And even though Chad Mendes was an excellent wrestler, every fight starts on the feet, and that's exactly what Conor took advantage from the very first seconds. For the first 2 minutes he attacked, kicked, and above all, landed body shots on Mendes, gradually decreasing his stamina and slowing his movements. The problem was that Mendes needed only 1 shot, and he took McGregor down instantly. Midway through the first round, he took Conor down to the ground and began landing brutal elbows from above. One of them cut McGregor above the eye and blood began to stream down his face. That was the first time we ever seen Conor bloodied inside of the octagon. It seemed that the only thing that could still save Conor were his earlier body shots, but Chad showed no signs of fatigue. In the second round, he took McGregor down to the ground again. Conor landed on his back once more and Mendes looked as if he had completely taken control of this fight. It looked like Conor McGregor is about to lose. Then suddenly, about 40 seconds before the end of the round, Chad made a decision he would later regret. Instead of counting to control Conor from the top and just elbow him all the time, he decided to go for a choke. McGregor was ready for it. He was able to get out of the difficult position and with the 39 seconds left in the round, the fight returned to the feet. A moment later, Mendes tried once more to take Conor down, but this time, the Irishman defended the takedown attempt. And then, his expression said it all. Conor knew that this was Chad's last real offensive attempt. He was exhausted. Body shots finally came into fruition and the final seconds of that round would go down in history as one of the most memorable finishes in UFC title fights. Despite all the odds, despite his knee problems, despite the injury, fatigue and immense pressure, Conor McGregor did exactly what he had promised before the fight. He said he would knock out Chad Mendes within the first 2 rounds, and that's exactly what he did. And although the road to this victory was much harder than many expected, in the end, he did it. Conor McGregor became the interim UFC featherweight champion, and with this victory, he had only 1 challenge left ahead of him: Jose Aldo. The Brazilian had been undefeated for 10 years. In his entire career, he had lost only once and won as many as 25 fights. For years, he was considered one of the best fighters across all weight classes. Most experts were picking him to win, and for good reason. Aldo had been dominating at the top for a decade, while Conor had only recently begun fighting in the UFC. Their clash was finally set to take place at UFC 194. After more than a year of waiting, the MMA world got the fight that it had been waiting for. Just before the event, the official weigh-in, interviews and final face-to-face meeting took place. In one of the interviews, Conor pointed out a small detail that would have been completely invisible to many people. When he stood face-to-face with Aldo, he noticed that the Brazilian's right hand was trembling slightly. For Conor, that was a sign. He concluded that Aldo would try to attack him with that very hand, and if he did, McGregor wouldn't be there anymore. He would just set up traps inside of the octagon and catch him. 24 hours later, we knew that the fight would last only 13 seconds. After years of dominance, after 10 years without a loss, after months of promotions and huge expectations, Jose Aldo was knocked out with a single punch. Conor McGregor achieved the impossible. He knocked out one of the best fighters in MMA history in 13 seconds and fulfilled his Irish dream. Many people believed Aldo would win. Conor didn't just win. He predicted exactly how he would do it. After the fight, he took the phone and he wrote on Twitter, "Wake up, Jose. it's over. It wasn't a fluke. McGregor had previously trained specifically the move he used to knock out Aldo. He predicted the entire fight from his opponent's first step to the final punch. The event turned out to be a huge success. At the time, it was one of the biggest UFC events since UFC 100, selling over 1 million pay-per-view buys. And Conor himself, he became without a doubt the biggest star in the world of MMA. And from that moment on, everyone wanted to fight him. No matter how, no matter when, no matter where, they just wanted to fight him because a fight with Conor meant the biggest payday of their careers. Since Conor basically defeated everyone in his division, he decided to look for other challenges. He moved up to lightweight to fight for a lightweight title. Unfortunately, Rafael dos Anjos, the lightweight champion at the time, was pulled out due to an injury. The UFC had to find a replacement, and that's when Nate Diaz stepped onto the scene. But the fight wouldn't happen in the lightweight division. It took place in welterweight division. Just 3 months after the biggest victory of his career, McGregor decided to move up a full 25 pounds to a higher weight class. It was a huge risk. On paper, the fight against Diaz might have looked like another win for Conor. But in reality, that wasn't the case at all. Nate Diaz is a veteran, a highly experienced fighter who had been battling the best for years and knew exactly how to use his physical attributes to his advantage. For Conor, it was a completely new situation. At first, however, there were no signs of trouble. McGregor started the fight very well, and in the first round he clearly dominated Nate, landing powerful punches, and it seemed like, honestly, he could just finish him off in the second round. And the second round is where everything changed. Conor just started to run out of steam. His punches no longer had the same power, and Diaz was landing more and more. When he landed a left hand on Conor, it absolutely stunned him. And the rest was just history. Nate Diaz achieved the impossible by making Conor tap out in the second round. He shocked the entire MMA world. For many, it was the moment they've been waiting for a long time. Because Conor McGregor isn't just some guy. You either love him or you hate him. After the loss, however, the Irishman was very honest. No excuses. He knew exactly where he went wrong. He wanted to end the fight too quickly, and the cardio wasn't the same as in the 145 pounds. In the first round he went all out and expended too much energy. He knew what he needed to fix and improve to win a rematch, and he wanted a rematch from the very beginning. Many people advised him to return to his own weight class. After all, he was fighting more than 25 pounds above his natural weight class. But Conor didn't want to back down. His ego wouldn't let him. He knew he had to win. And that's exactly what he was going to do. The rematch with Nate Diaz was scheduled for 20th of August 2016 at UFC 202, and it was a fight that went down in history as one of the best in UFC history. This time, Conor approached the bout completely differently. He was more patient, he managed his energy very good, and in the first round he sent Diaz to canvas several times. But despite his huge advantage, he failed to finish the fight before the time ran out. Years later, watching that fight, one gets the impression that the first and second rounds definitely belonged to Conor, while the third and fifth belonged to Nate Diaz. Everything came down to the fourth round, and that's where Conor landed more significant strikes and regained control of the fight. And what did the judges score? It was one of the closest fights in UFC history. At the same time, McGregor proved something else. It didn't matter whether he fought at featherweight, lightweight, or even higher at welterweight. He was capable of winning regardless of the weight class. A return to the featherweight division to defend his title seemed like a natural next step. Conor, however, had a completely different plan. He wanted to do something no one had ever done before. Win a second UFC championship belt and hold two of them at the same time. Even before his first fight with Nate Diaz, he was supposed to face Rafael dos Anjos for the lightweight title, but the Brazilian's injury unfortunately destroyed those plans. Since then, the champion has changed. Eddie Alvarez has become the new king of the lightweight division, strong, dangerous, and extremely experienced. Their bout was supposed to happen at UFC 205. Everyone was focused on Conor McGregor. If he wins, he will become the first fighter in UFC history to hold two championship belts simultaneously, an achievement that had seemed impossible just few years earlier. But one thing must be admitted, Conor was in excellent form, at least during the press conferences.
Who do you think would give you the hardest fight out of anybody on stage?
Right here. Right here, the hardest hitting 145 pound, the real hardest hitting 145er right here. This guy TKOs people. When I knock people out, they don't fucking move. They're like, who the fuck is that guy? Who the fuck is that?
He knew exactly how to hype up a fight, but a few days later he showed that he could also do something much more important: live up to all his promises. What happened at UFC 205 can be summed up in just two words: absolute masterclass. It wasn't just about the victory, it was about the way it was achieved. That very first well-placed punch showed that Conor was in absolutely phenomenal form that evening. His precision was nothing short of surgical. Every hit looked absolutely amazing. Eddie Alvarez he really tried to fight back, but when the greats do the great things, there is nothing you can do to stop them. Every time McGregor landed a strike, Alvarez looked stunned. At times it seemed as Eddie's face was literally drawn towards Conor's fist. Despite everything, he managed to survive the first round, but honestly, it wouldn't change a thing. The second round was even more one-sided. Each combination highlighted the huge gap in skill between the two fighters, and the final exchange will forever go down in UFC history and cement the greatest performance in a UFC title fight ever. Conor McGregor knocked out Eddie Alvarez and became the first fighter in the organization's history to hold two championship belts simultaneously. After the fight, he delivered a speech that every MMA fan still knows by heart today. It was the moment that cemented his legend. Conor didn't just make history, he changed history. From that moment on, the UFC reached a whole new level of popularity, and Conor's name kept breaking new records for viewership and sales. After winning two belts, Conor decided he deserved a break. He had been fighting practically non-stop since 2014, and although the break meant giving up both championship titles, it didn't bother him that much. In his mind, he was still the true champion. He was enjoying life. He posted photos with his belt, spent time with his family, and celebrated the birth of his son. It seemed that for a while, we wouldn't be hearing about him in the context of upcoming fights. No one could have predicted what would happen moment later. The huge announcement took place. Conor McGregor versus Floyd Mayweather, the best MMA fighter against one of the greatest boxers in history. Just a few months earlier, it sounded like fantasy. But now, it was actually possible that we could see this fight happen. The global promotional tour took place in New York, Toronto and London, and it was a clash of two worlds. The biggest star in MMA versus the undefeated boxing champion. The promotion period itself was a spectacle in its own rights. Conor proved once again that no one can market a fight like he can, and he made millions of people believe that he really could beat Floyd Mayweather. And even though Conor lost, he still managed to get more punches than Manny Pacquiao did versus Floyd Mayweather. That was an achievement in itself. It was an amazing fight, he earned hundreds of millions of dollars. And he did what many thought he couldn't. He stepped into the octagon and hit hundreds shots versus Floyd Mayweather. Unfortunately, this is the end of good news. When he came back to UFC to fight Khabib Nurmagomedov, who he had a huge beef with because of his friend Artem Lobov that got into interaction with him, he wasn't the same Conor. He was drinking a lot, and during the preparation into the fight he broke his foot. As he said later on, his foot was a balloon, and indeed it looked like one. Conor wasn't able to stand proper on it, he clearly couldn't kick, and every single time Khabib took him into the ground, it looked like he just lost control of the fight. Although it was the first time ever someone won the round off Khabib Nurmagomedov, it clearly just wasn't enough to win the whole fight, and he lost by a 4th round submission, and the whole brawl exploded afterwards. After that, Conor took a break, and it was a really long break. We are not talking about a year off, we are talking almost about 3 years off that he just took off, and during this time his opponent Khabib Nurmagomedov and his biggest enemy was able to retire, and that was actually the reason that probably Conor lost his motivation again. He came back and he fought versus Donald Cerrone, and it looked like we are seeing the same Conor. He also talked about the struggles that he had with alcohol, with motivation before the fight with Khabib, and in the fight versus Donald Cerrone, he looked like a real Conor. He looked like the old Conor who is back, motivated and ready to dominate again, and he won. He won in dominant fashion. Unfortunately, it was only one fight, and it was also his last win in the UFC till today. Right after that fight, he decided to give Dustin Poirier a rematch. The guy who he just dominated few years back now was back and he was ready to roll, and honestly, Dustin Poirier completely dominated Conor with calf kicks. He wasn't ready for calf kicks, he got his leg completely destroyed and he wasn't even able to stand on it at the end of the fight. Conor lost this fight, and with that, his chances of getting a title shot were just that. Fortunately, even though we saw a humble Conor before a Dustin fight, the next Conor that came back was the old Conor. He didn't take anything for granted, he was just straight up mean Conor, talking shit about everyone, and getting the promotion rolling for UFC, and trust me, it worked.
Conor, this is an immense fight, a huge fight for your career, a huge fight for the sport. What does tomorrow night mean to you?
Joe, in 16 hours' time, this man is gonna learn that if you disrespect a person's kindness and take it as a weakness, you must pay. Tomorrow night, I'm gonna make this man pay with his life, and I mean it. You're dead in that octagon tomorrow night.
Conor McGregor, ladies and gentlemen.
Unfortunately, again, it wasn't enough. Conor McGregor went into the fight versus Dustin Poirier and he broke his leg. He broke his leg in the horrific fashion. The fight that would honestly just end career of most of MMA fighters looked like ended his. He had a surgery the next morning, but everyone who suffered such a horrific injury never comes back the same. And we knew the same would happen to Conor. He said he would come back for years. He's been saying that he will fight Michael Chandler at the beginning of 2024. Then he said he will fight him in the International Fight Week 2024. Didn't happen. Then he said he will fight in 2025. Didn't happen. And finally, after many years, after 5-year layoff, Conor McGregor is back. And he will fight versus Max Holloway. During this layoff, he's been doing coke, he's been doing alcohol, he's been doing movies, he's been doing anything but MMA. And unfortunately, I think this is the reason why I think on Saturday night it will be Max Holloway who will win and dominate against Conor McGregor. Win, draw or lose, you can love Conor McGregor or you can hate him. But you can't deny one thing. He is the guy that changed the world of MMA. There is only one Conor McGregor, and he is the guy who changed everything about MMA, how it's being perceived, and how you view MMA. He made basically fall people in love with mixed martial arts. Unfortunately, he lost his way. He said it himself at the age of 27, he had everything he ever wanted, and that was what cost it. But he still has time to come back. And this fight on Saturday night, if he somehow wins it, that would be the comeback for the ages. And as probably most of you already seen, what happened is Conor McGregor fought Holloway and, well, it didn't go exactly to the plan. He decided to go for a extremely risky kick at the start of the fight and he tore his ACL, most likely at least, because we still don't know the exact details on what the injury is, but most likely he tore his ACL, which is like 12 months break, and the greatest comeback in sports history never took place. Will we ever see Conor McGregor inside the octagon again? It's a question that probably only Conor knows the answer to. Thanks for watching. If obviously you like this video and you like this sort of content, please leave a like and subscription.